Welcome to the Zachrilege cast. Let me hit the button by twice accidentally. That's great. Every time it happens, it's different. Amy with a Y and Felicia and Entwistle are on today of Secular Soup and Utah Outcasts. You know, Utah Outcasts should have some kind of beer glass thing. Then you'd be next level.
Have you not gone on to like our Teespring store?
I apparently need to.
Yeah, we got all sorts of like designs and stuff on there.
Yeah, you're all next level.
Yeah, we're very cool.
We're still just a tiny startup over here, so we don't have that shit figured out. I have to paint actual words on things because ordering them I can't figure it out.
Teespring, yeah, you can upload it, but you have to have it in a specific like format, and then they'll just like print it on the stuff. So yeah, we
have a cafe press shop, but I really don't like a cafe press.
Was it cafe press? No, I'm pretty sure we're on Teespring.
Yeah.
Special beer for today. Satan Pulls the Strings, a bourbon barrel aged quad. Just because it just seemed right. When I saw on the shelves, I'm like, duh. So real quick, content warning for people. Usually I do this beforehand, but we will talk about abortion today, and we will be unembarrassed supporters of it. And usually I don't set the scene, but we are talking about two podcast events, episode 120 of the Right to Reason podcast, in which you ladies debated two boys. And it's okay to say that because my liberal guy friends don't think it's an insult. And the follow-up 71 of Secular Soup, in which you discussed it. And that all came out about the same time. And after I heard all that, I'm like, oh, got to get you on to talk about the debate and the discussion. And I also wanted to mention, after listening to the debate first, something about the binary way of how women and men are supposed to act, and how the two of you were very polite, remembered the debaters' names, didn't really fall for any bait or got any show of like over emotion, and the guys just assumed their preset talking points were going to win and they were going to get catered to. So you got a little bit of that. But
yeah, we definitely, we were very aware of our gender going in, and the way,
yes,
yeah, you know, the thing is that Amy and I are both not that patient of people, I think, in real life and in like any other context, but for the use of this particular propaganda, because most people who are going to listen to that are not going to come listen to the follow-up talks about it, but like here or when I went on Secular Soup or when I talked about it on Utah Outcast, they're probably not going to follow up with those particular things, right? So most people are going to just hear that and get the impression of us from that conversation, and it's effective to play into expectations of femininity, politeness, calmness, and give off an air of a ton of quote, like hashtag rational, like you have to sound rational. It doesn't matter how rational you're being. And we planned it. We totally planned it. Yep.
Yeah. Everyone's like, how could you be so patient? And I'm like, that was the whole plan going into, like, because that was just what we were going to do. It wasn't a question of, I can be very patient when I need to be. Like, I can pretend to be super nice, even though I'm a giant bitch. But it was easy to do.
I can pretend to be tolerant of hateful ideas. I can do that.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like when a guest is like, wow, you really do research. I'm like, yes, I interview people and I do research before, maybe not as much as I should, but it is like, you knew going in. Well, I don't know if you knew, and maybe that's why we'll kind of get this started. But I mean, how did you initially get contacted to do this debate? Because I haven't listened to a Right to Reason in a while, and I know he does these kind of, two different sides debates a lot.
Well, and you may or may not belong to it, but we belong to a super secret podcasting group on Facebook, just for atheist and secular podcasters, where people kind of bounce ideas off each other and just give each other advice. And so Robert had gone, the host of Right to Reason, had gone into that group and just kind of put out a call that he was looking for someone to, he wanted to do a debate on abortion, and he wanted some people to come on and debate the, pro-abortion side, which, like Felicia said on our talk, I am pro-abortion. I'm totally cool with using that label.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was looking.
Well, he was looking for pro-choice, right? And he was absolutely looking for your prototypical softened language, marketing approved language that no one's buying into about, choice versus life. It's a bunch of shit. It's too pro-abortion and pro-forced birth. That's it. That's the two sides.
Yeah.
And but yeah, he was looking for people. I was somebody, Brent recommended me, and a friend and podcaster as well recommended me after Amy had already accepted or offered. Did you offer or did he ask?
Basically, when he put it out there, I think one person had responded with a suggestion, like, you should contact this person. And my exact response was, I'll do it if you need a last resort. Like,
yeah, I remember seeing that.
I like to argue about abortion, and I know about it. I'll do it. But if you find somebody who's more qualified than me, take them. But if you need someone, I will do it. But then he contacted me privately and was like, okay, you're willing to do it. Great. Let's set it up. And I'm like, okay. And
yeah. Well, and then I reached out to him like, hey, I think you need to be very careful with this topic. It's not just about getting somebody knowledgeable, but somebody who can do a skilled debate with the actual ability to communicate and be persuasive. And he said, great, you'll do it too.
Yeah.
Like,
volunteer.
Yeah, voluntold. And I was like, he's already like wrangled Amy into this, and I'm not gonna leave her, like, because like that's when I found out there was two dudes gonna be on there. I'm like, I'm not gonna just leave her to like go up against two idiots.
Yeah, I don't know how it ended up expanding to 4 people, if he planned on it being that way, or if it started out being 2 people and then he got both Felicia and I have no idea how that panned out. All I know,
well, like when he said that you'll come on too, he told me that he already had Dallas and Chris.
Oh,
so he wanted maybe like, I don't know what happened,
who knows?
Yeah, but it turned like, I was just like, yeah, I'm not gonna like,
well,
say no. And I wasn't even volunteering. I was just like, can you please be very careful about who you ask to do this?
Well, I do remember seeing that thread, and it is important because I've seen, and I'm kind of done with the whole like God versus non-God kind of debates, because it is more about, are you a good debater versus whether you have good points. So I was kind of wondering how this would be set up, and it didn't seem like it really was set up like a typical debate in that you kind of had talk, counterpoint, you just kind of had intros, and then you just kind of, it went a little randomly.
I think the thing that happened was, I think he originally intended for it to be that kind of like when we tried to pin down, is this going to be a debate or is it going to be a discussion? It was sort of loosely, like, we're not going to have debate rules. It'll be more of a discussion. But I think, especially when Chris went into it, he is used to just doing debates. And he, I think, went into it thinking that that's what it was going to be. It was going to be point, counterpoint. And Felicia and I went into it knowing that we didn't want to play that game. So we had planned ahead of time to, instead of doing the point, counterpoint, here's your philosophical view and here's my philosophical view, we very specifically wanted to make it about real stories of real people and how this issue affects people in the real world, not just a philosophical debate about morality and what's right and wrong, but what's actually happening.
Well, yeah, it's still philosophy, but it's praxis versus theory, right? Because like where the theoretical person begins. And this is, philosophical theory is different than scientific, in case anyone needs that clarified. But these two guys are only prepared, and we kind of knew this going in. One, there's no new pro-forced birth arguments under the sun. No. We've heard them all. They're all bad. And 2, Amy had gotten into it on Facebook with Dallas, so we already knew exactly what he was going to say.
I told Felicia, I'm like, I have been arguing with this guy for like a week already on Facebook, so he's brought out all of his arguments already.
Yeah.
Like he's already on Facebook trotted out what he thinks are his best arguments. So we already know what he's going to say, so we can plan for that. Like I even had a little note thing I had worked out ahead of time, like when he says this, I want to reply with that because he's going to argue this. It was just, and like Felicia said, there's no new arguments anyway, but very specifically with him, I at least knew which points he was going to argue because I'd already done it all with him a week before on Facebook, which was pure coincidence. I do not know this guy at all. And he just had chimed in on somebody else's post. And then when, Robert contacted me about the debate. He's like, oh, so here's the guys that are going to be debating against you. And I'm just like, oh my God. Ooh. Okay. I said, maybe you should tell him it's going to be me. He might not want to do it anymore if he knows I'm the one doing it, but I'm on board. It's fine. So
yeah. We definitely, we planned the exact arguments we wanted to stick to. I mean, we went back and forth several times. I'm like, is this something we want to get into or is this not? Or how do we approach this? We definitely strategized the debate, which it does not seem that Chris and Dallas did that at all. I don't think that they thought to even not even just together, but for themselves, consider putting together a strategy for this, because I think they were like, it's going to be like a Facebook argument, but real life. And Amy and I were treating it like propaganda, which is what it was. It's propaganda for us.
It did seem like they didn't work together, and that's my cat outside my door, so don't worry about that. That's how it goes. He doesn't actually want to be on camera. There's no interest whatsoever. So what made you decide to make it personal? Because in both of your kind of opening arguments, you linked it back to kind of personal stories instead of making it this very vague, philosophical, one-size-fits-all kind of argument.
Well, I think, the main reason that I and a lot of other people are pro-choice is not for philosophical reasons. It's, like I said, for real world reasons, for our experience. I have the experience of being pregnant twice. And because of that experience, I bring a different point of view to it. So I kind of felt like I'm not just going to let that go. I have an experience to talk about. So why not talk about it and bring it out? It wasn't for people to feel sorry for me or to, it was just to say, hey, you two are never going to be in this position. Like neither of those two are ever going to be pregnant.
Yeah.
And as much as they can think to themselves, here's what it must be like to be pregnant, or here's what people tell me it's like to be pregnant, they're just never going to know. And until you are in that position, I feel like you can't argue from a real place of authority. So I just really wanted to talk about, because even before I was pregnant, you have preconceived ideas of what it is and what it means. And then you get pregnant and you're like, holy shit, this is not at all what I expected at all. And it's just such a roller coaster ride. And I think we need to keep that in mind because we're talking about people who are pregnant and what their rights should be. And those people need to be kept in mind. So,
yeah, I mean, I think for me, there's the personal aspect. I never want to be pregnant. I've made that choice. I know I never ever want to use my body in that service. I also am personally very, very invested in keeping abortion legal and safe because I have an IUD and those come with an increased risk of ectopic pregnancy, which can be deadly. And then I also have endometriosis, which can complicate pregnancy in other ways. And it can make it, it can be really, it's scary and terrifying. And I know that if I get pregnant, I'm getting an abortion. I need that. I need to have access to it for myself. I'm in no place to get pregnant. I like to drink whiskey. I drink whiskey when I'm on the show. What, you're going to get me to 6 weeks. Well, I actually would probably find out 5 days after my missed period. I am very regular. I am very lucky. But you're going to have me 2 weeks where I've been drinking. That's the worst time to be drinking. I am not in a place where I can get pregnant. It's not a good idea. And I'm not going to change my entire life just because of that. It's insane. But then also, I have never, ever, ever heard a story of someone who got an abortion where it didn't make complete fucking sense. And you'll hear, from a lot of people like, well, there is exceptions for this situation. But they're all the exception. Every single one is the exception. Like, that's why, for me, the strategy needed to make it clear it's impossible to put a blanket statement on when it's acceptable to get an abortion and when it isn't, because there's too many circumstances in which it is absolutely necessary.
Well, and you hear a lot of stories from, people who work in abortion clinics or just people who are familiar with the issue, that there are women who will be protesting outside of a clinic one day and then they're there to get an abortion the next day. And to a person, they will usually say, well, my experience is different. I'm not doing it because I'm selfish. It's because this weird situation happened.
Yeah. And I just can't be
that's every
pregnant.
Abortion. Yeah.
That's every single abortion. Yeah. It's every single one. There is. And no, nobody has to explain their reasons to you. It can just simply be being pregnant would be a fucking drag. But the thing is that could you imagine how somebody who doesn't want to be pregnant, does not want a baby, and is forced to birth, how are they going to treat their body during that pregnancy? If you're going to, why on earth are they going to be they're not going to take responsibility for this pregnancy. It's not a good situation. Forcing someone to birth is always going to result in bad things happening. And every single time a woman or anybody gets an abortion, it's because that's absolutely the option that was needed. That was the one that they had to go with. I have never heard a story where it was nah, you could have carried that and been a mom. I've never ever heard that story where it was yeah, no, you totally could have just done this. It would have been great.
Yeah, I have no patience for people who don't understand the gravity of pregnancy and I've heard this especially from a lot of men, frankly, that, well, it's just 9 months and it's so selfish to not, it's just 9 months. You're not going to die.
Well, you're not going to die.
You might die. For starters, you could die. And even if you don't die, it is such a huge undertaking. Being pregnant it took me 6 years to decide to do it a second time because at first I thought we're just going to have one kid. That's it. We're going to have one. And after I gave birth the first time, I'm like, yep, definitely just the one. I'm never doing this again. And, after a while we kind of did the typical, well, maybe we want him to have a sibling and, if we, I'm not getting any older and and so, but it literally 6 years before I was like, okay, I think I can do it again. It's going to suck. It's not going to be fun, but I will put up with it. And I did. But yeah, the thought of going through that because you were told you have to is sickening to me. Even as someone who went through it knowing I wanted to, it was fucking miserable. So to have to be going through it because someone said, sorry, we don't trust you to know what's best for you. So we're going to go ahead and make that decision.
No, because
so just go ahead and stay pregnant. It'll be fine.
Because in every way you could possibly conceive of it, in a philosophical theory, a potential person, I do not they're just but it's alive. That's seriously, Chris's thing was it grows. So lots of things that are alive don't grow too. I don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't make any fucking sense. It's a potential person. It does not feel like a person. It cannot think. It cannot function. It is not a person. And they're valuing that incubation of that potential person over the person already here and living. And I mean, I don't see how they don't see it. I don't see how they don't understand. I mean, Chris even agreed. It's not exactly the same as a baby, right? It's not exactly the same. So I don't understand how they can get to this place where they're yeah, but you still need to enslave your body to the incubation of somebody else. regardless of the consequences, regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we brought that up during the debate too, like, because Dallas liked to use the word arbitrarily, which he used while we were debating on Facebook and during.
Yeah, I know, but that's not even what that means, because arbitrarily would mean like without reasoning.
Exactly. Yeah. He kept saying, arbitrarily have, and so I challenged him, like, what does arbitrarily mean? Because you keep saying, arbitrary women are having abortions arbitrary, like, no, that's not, it's not for no reason. He seems to have this idea that women are going around just willy-nilly wanting to, his term is, kill their offspring and
have sex without any of the consequences.
Yeah, I'm surprised he dug himself in on that one.
Dallas, I think, according to his introduction, was like an agnostic, but he sounded very fundamentalist Christian, like he was talking about hedonism, like people just have sex and then get pregnant, and they're like, well, on a whim, I'm just going to have this abortion. Where
he strikes me as someone who is not at all agnostic. He's actually a Christian, but he uses the agnostic term so that when he goes on debates, he can sound more credible. I think that's the impression I get.
I absolutely would. I think that's a really good characterization. He calls himself an agnostic theist.
Yeah.
But he's absolutely just your run-of-the-mill Christian, like just
conservative.
Yeah.
And he does the thing that I think a lot of atheists do too, a lot, where they try to say, he's like, well, I'm not arguing this from a theistic point of view. I'm just arguing this from a strictly secular point of view. And I see atheists do that sometimes too, where they're like, I'm not doing this as an atheist. We're just going to do this on these other merits. And so I think Dallas, at least Chris, acknowledges that his religion is part of why he feels the way he does. Whereas Dallas, I think, really thinks that he's just got this stone cold logical argument that will win every time, and it has nothing to do with God. And even though he does believe in God, that's not why he's arguing this. That's not why he believes it. And it's so transparent to me.
It is. Yeah, that was exactly the word I was going to use, is transparent.
Yeah, like we can all see through you. We all get that the only reason that you think that a life begins at conception and that
they are
embryo
they are due incubation in the body of another.
Yep, is because you believe they have in fact, he and I argued for another week after the debate, just
to be fair, I started that one.
She totally started it, left a mess, and then walked away.
Awesome.
I did.
He just lit the bomb and walked away slowly.
I did.
It exploded.
I implied, based on things he was saying, that because he made the arguments of a white supremacist, that he was a white supremacist.
And he didn't take kindly to that.
He did not like it.
No, he was like, what? I'm not a white supremacist. I
just use all their same talking points, and we'll talk about race realism and concerns about immigrants replacing Americans. Like straight up white supremacist talking points that I actually got to the point was I was making his arguments for him because I knew what he was going to say. And then, so I called him a white supremacist, or heavily implied he was a white supremacist, and then left the group chat.
And
nice.
Then it's just me
because I knew he would hate it.
Well, then it ends up and I had woken up one morning and saw this entire conversation and was like, I don't have time to read this. It was just all Dallas and Felicia. And I'm like, I'm just, for the record, I agree with Felicia because I don't have time to read all of this.
Yeah,
so
I love that. You were like,
I'm just going to take her word for it.
Whatever she said.
Yeah, I'm sure it was right. But then Felicia left. And then, of course, I cannot stop myself from arguing. I just can't. It's a sickness. As long as he was going to keep going with it, I was going to keep going with it. And we had these very, very long back and forths about just abortion in general. And he at some point sent me a fascinating video from YouTube about late-term abortion that was very informational and really, really got me to change my mind. Totally.
How it happens,
undercover
all the time, and
it was an undercover video. So undercover where they went into an abortion clinic and they talked to it was a shit show. I watched the whole video.
You're telling me that there was abortions of pregnancies that were past 41 weeks, therefore late term.
No.
That actually, because like that has ever happened ever, because it's never happened.
Yeah. Here's how bad this video was. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to humor him.
Right.
I'm going to fucking watch it. And it's just one of these heavily edited and filled with music, and it's ridiculous. But basically the premise is that these two women are going undercover into an abortion clinic in Colorado, I think. And so they go in and they've got their camera, but the camera strangely is pointed at the ceiling the whole time. So you get a really good view of some fluorescent lighting while you hear a nurse come in and ask them how much money they have. You know, how much money do you have right now? And then they're like, well, I don't, we're just trying to, I don't know. All the nurse cares about is so, but again, you don't see this nurse. You see the ceiling. So yeah, so then
that you can't believe everything you see on the internet, man.
Yeah,
like,
but no,
this is basic shit.
There's a part 2. So after just the ceiling part, these women go into the waiting room, right? So in the waiting room,
definitely a real waiting room.
And you can see there's another woman in the waiting room that they strike up a conversation with, and this woman tells them that, you know, she just this baby is perfectly viable. She just doesn't want it, and she's like 33 weeks along, and you know, it's just like she tried to have an abortion earlier, but they wouldn't let her. So now she's here, and she's like, they told me like it doesn't have Downs or anything, and these two women are like, oh my gosh, really? I watched it and I wrote back to him, are you fucking serious? I'm like, do you consider yourself you consider yourself, Dallas, to be a rational skeptic, don't you? Because I'm like, if you consider yourself a skeptic, how do you not see the multiple problems with this? And he's like, I'm all ears. Go ahead and I'm just like, are you?
Wow.
You see nothing of the clinic.
You see nothing of the clinic. You see nothing of, and even the stuff where they're talking to the patient in the waiting room, that I'll even give you that was totally real. But if it was totally real, what you had heard was a nurse coming in saying, is everybody okay in here? Because sometimes we get, you know, the anti-choice people from outside trying to sneak in and talk to our patients and harass them. So number one, maybe the woman they were talking to was an anti-choice person trying to talk them out of it. And even if that wasn't the case, the woman said twice, I tried to get an abortion at 8 weeks, but I couldn't because the clinic I went to, you know, and then I tried again, like at 18 weeks, but the doctor didn't feel comfortable. Like it proves everything about what we're saying, everything. So either it's fake and it's total bullshit, or it's real and it still fucking proves my point. Like, how do you think this video is gonna?
I'd be shocked. I would be shocked if that clinic would do an abortion at 33 weeks though, because at that point, it is childbirth, you know, it's not, it's no safer than taking to term. And this is for the medical professionals and like everyone to decide. But at that point, you do start getting into an ethical gray area. And I would be shocked because like at that, it's not safer to abort a pregnancy at 33 weeks. It's just not.
Well, and I should clear up that I can't remember. I doubt it was 33 weeks. I don't know how many weeks it was. I was being hyperbolic, but it could have been. It could have been like 20 weeks, maybe, that she was there. They specifically said I think it was a legit clinic they were claiming to be in, because it was a Colorado clinic where they do perform later abortions. But again,
there's a lot of reasons people might need them.
I was wondering because I feel like there are only, I think, 2 places from what I've heard that do late term. I don't even know what technically a late term abortion is. Like after
there were 4 in the country, but yeah, they're talking like after 24 weeks.
I mean, late term abortion is basically like, oh, we found out that either the baby has a situation where the baby's already dead or will die, or the mom will die.
But Zach, I would ask you to stop calling it late term, because a pregnancy is only late term when it's more than a week past due. So 41 weeks and up is when a pregnancy is late term. So there is
the right way terminology.
Yeah.
So you're thinking third trimester.
Yeah, third trimester.
Third trimester.
Well, there is no such thing. Pregnancy is. We won't go there. It's too late for that. Well, I wanted to ask,
no such thing as a late-term abortion, though. Like, it does not exist.
So during the debate, at least Dallas made this big point that like everybody on the pro-abortion side like lied all the time and used Orwellian language. And we won't get into that because Amy will go on for 20 minutes about that, because I know
for sure
you have plenty to say about that. But it's always intriguing. It's like a Trump tactic, like basically accusing the other side of doing what you're doing. I always just 100% of the time see pro or anti-abortion people using blatant lies. And I sent the two of you this article where a bunch of doctors and scientists were like, that whole thing about the 6-week heartbeat bill, which by the way passed in my state recently, it's not, there's not even a heart at 6 weeks.
No.
So it's all like based on a total lie, but people are just going with it. Like there are so many states that have just passed this, and it's
the language they've used with these kind of trap laws for the past at least decade or two has been like that. They'll try to pass 24-hour waiting periods, and they'll call them the woman's right to know bill, because that sounds like, even to I've had talks with my mom about this, and she'll say, well, it seems reasonable to have someone wait 24 hours to make a decision. And it's like, yeah, it sounds reasonable to a lot of people, but it's not reasonable at all, because what you're doing is saying that these women haven't thought about it, or I should say pregnant people haven't thought about what they're doing, and you're just putting obstacles in their way. But when you call it something like a woman's right to know,
yeah, that's 2 days off work
the language, and it's it makes people think, oh, well, that doesn't sound so bad, right? And it's very intentional the way they use this language, and the language of the heartbeat, and but then to call us the Orwellian ones, I can't. It's beyond comprehension.
I'm pretty proud of how we handled that. We just said, okay. Well, yeah, we'll use whatever thing that you think makes us sound bad, and point out that it's not. Yeah. Like, I think that it's really hard to make somebody look bad if they own it.
I want the right to kill my offspring in utero. Sure, that's accurate, I guess. That's my offspring in utero. Okay, I'll go with that. Kill, if you want to go with it, if you're assuming that it's a live thing and you are killing it, okay, I'll go with that. Sure, I'm pro that.
Yeah,
I just killed some skin cells. Like that's actually what I did.
There's this assumption that the side that is pro-abortion or pro-choice doesn't want to say, "Oh, we're killing something." So the fact that you're at least were willing to say that, like, okay. That did kind of mess them up, because it was like a standard talking point, and like, well, they're afraid to say that, and you're like, oh, I just said it.
Yeah, and not only that, but it doesn't matter whatsoever to the bodily autonomy argument. So if you're arguing from bodily autonomy, it doesn't matter if you use the word kill, because the point is, like I love how Felicia put the triage situation. Okay, let's say we are talking about two distinct people. That does not matter, because we need to decide which one of these two people gets to have the say in this situation, and the person should always be the one who is here and who is coherent and who has
who is viable.
So I don't care. You can say you're killing someone, but it doesn't matter.
If we want to talk the reality of things, there will be car crashes where they will choose to save a 70-year-old over a baby because of viability, a chance at healing, and just general consciousness. Like, there are so many things. That sounds terrible. I know. Like, you're like, but the 70-year-old has had a chance to live. No. You have to think about it in ability to survive. And there's obviously going to be times where, like, you do go to save the baby because triage. But you have to think about these things in a way that viability, coherentness, ability to recover, the ability to have a full life. And the thing is, the pregnant person is always that person. And they are literally the only one who gets to make choices about their healthcare decisions. That I don't see how this is so complicated. Like, I don't understand how they are still insisting that people be incubators. Like, I don't know where they're getting that, other than, they won't admit it. Dallas believes that there's a soul, and that's the woman's job, because he's not going to acknowledge trans men in this conversation, right?
No.
He believes it's the woman's job to bring that soul into existence. And Chris absolutely believes that. And that's what it comes down to, is that's what we're for. We are incubators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it
and
makes them,
why don't they just say it? Why don't they just own that? They say we're the ones who are dishonest and who use Orwellian language and will not speak honestly about what our position is. Just fucking call me an incubator, okay? Just say what you fucking mean.
And I think they think that they're being very warm and fuzzy in their own brain. Like, oh, isn't it sweet? A mother carrying a baby. There's nothing sweeter than that. Seeing,
It's
a mother with a new, exactly, the miracle of life. It's wonderful. Life isn't fucking warm and fuzzy most of the time. It's
not. Life is pretty shitty most of the time.
Yeah, just because you think something is warm and fuzzy is not an argument to make it mandatory. Life really does suck a whole lot of the time. And this idea that life at all costs is always a good thing, I truly can't wrap my brain around that. Like a baby who's born, a child who's born who is beaten their entire lives and then is murdered at 3 years old. Are you going to? No, that life was not good under any circumstances. That poor child had a miserable existence.
Yeah.
And yes, I will say it would have been better if that child hadn't existed, because my God, to be beaten your entire existence and know nothing but pain and suffering. No, that's not an eternal good. It's just not.
No. And yeah, I'm with you 100%. Like, there are lives that don't need to be born. And don't get me wrong, I'm cool being alive. I tend to like it most of the time, even though it does suck most of the time.
I can take it or leave it.
But people will be like, well, what if your mother had aborted you? One, I was a planned pregnancy, so highly unlikely there. But then I wouldn't know, would I?
Yeah.
I would have never known.
That argument, I've heard that because my parents were teenagers. Like, I was an unplanned teen pregnancy, straight up. There was no plan for me. And I was born in 1977, so abortion was legal, but my mom came from a very Catholic family. It was never going to happen. But, I've heard, what if your mom had aborted you? I don't give a shit. I wouldn't be here worrying about it, would I? Like, if my mom had been able to do it, maybe she could have gone on to fulfill some of her dreams that she had. And maybe she could have, become a nurse like she wanted to. And I wouldn't be sitting around here going, but why can't I be born? Because that's just ridiculous to even think about. Like, what if that sperm and that egg hadn't met? What if your mom had never met your dad? The whole what if you had never been born thing is just ridiculous to even think about.
Well, okay, so I want to talk about, like, they believe that that's a soul, right? And therefore it needs to get born because God said so. So then wouldn't it just hop into a new baby? Like, wouldn't that soul just go somewhere new?
How that works, and that makes sense.
I don't see why. It's not like you're like terminating a soul, right? Like, no one believes that you could just like terminate a soul. Like, it's like, no, or like, it's definitely
actually good news, according to there was a random chat person, Catholic dude, who came on and said abortion is murder, and it's like, well, actually, there was a atheist guy who was like, he was raised Islamic and he decided to commit suicide because in that faith, if you did any sins before like age 12, you were off the hook. So he knew, like, well, if I kill myself now, I'm going to heaven for sure. And you guarantee that like a baby or a young kid is going to heaven if they never had a chance to sin. So that just that religious argument.
It's very hard.
That much.
It gets really.
It's very dark.
His name is actually Catholic Dude, Zach. What?
Yeah,
I just look at the chat and I'm like, are you kidding? It's just Catholic Dude. I thought you were.
Abortion is the killing of another human being, so it's murder. It's evil. It is evil.
Prove to me it's a being. Prove to me it's a being. Like, this whole, it's a human being. Prove it's a being.
I don't think Catholic Dude is high on what we call active listening, so I don't know if we could get Catholic Dude to listen to this episode and actually say, oh, like, I had this concept earlier. I didn't get to it because you were doing just fine by yourself, but could we convince Chris and this guy in the chat room that women have intrinsic moral value, because apparently the fetus and the cells have intrinsic moral value, but the woman who has the cells inside her don't seem to, or at least, and it's always this game of like the tie goes to the runner, like, okay, who has more value, the woman or the potential child?
Well, and when you ask them that, Dallas at least said that it's up to the woman to do this because it's natural. It's just the natural order of things.
It's the natural order. You have a natural. Yes. You have a natural responsibility to care for your offspring.
Yep. And so that's why my autonomy doesn't matter as much as that little blastocyst that was just created, because it's natural that my body should be raising that and nourishing it. And so what's the problem? That thing does have more rights than I do, because I'm just here to nourish it as I naturally should, which is utter bullshit. We all understand that, but that's their point of view, is that because it's natural. So even when you try to say like, okay, what if men could get pregnant? Well, that's not the way it is, though. That's not natural. So
yeah, if we could, I 100% tell you that I would carry it if I could. Yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah. Like, tell me what the clitoris is, Dallas. Like,
oh, that was amazing. Like, I'm not talking about my sex life.
I didn't ask you to talk about your sex life. I just asked you to describe anatomy, man. Just some basic anatomy. He did not care for that. He spent more time avoiding answering the question than it would take to answer the question. That is the second time I've had a pro-force birther do that. I asked one repeatedly what a vulva was, and he took so much time to tell me he didn't have time to get into it right now. Like, so much time. I was like,
well, and this is the same person who, when I was arguing with him over, which nobody else saw because it was just he and I at that point, but he kept trying to bring me back to third trimester abortion. And that's where he sent me the video. And I kept telling him, I don't give a shit about this issue. It's not something that happens. Go find me somebody. Go find me one person who is 35 weeks pregnant, walks into a clinic and goes, God damn it, I just changed my mind. I mean, I just realized that I can't fit into my swimsuit anymore. I have shit I want it. No, fuck it. Could you just, that does not happen. So until that happens, I'm not even discussing this because it's a non-issue.
Yeah.
And he would keep going back to, but it is, because you have to say that if you think it's okay at this point, then it's okay. Like, I don't care about that. I'm not going to debate this issue because it is a fucking non-issue until you find me a whole bunch of people that you can prove that we have a problem with people who are, 35 weeks pregnant, who just changed their mind, and it doesn't happen. Nobody gets to 35 weeks pregnant and goes, fuck it, I changed my mind.
No, they don't. It's
not an issue. And if it is,
been through all the things, like,
even if it were an issue, the solution to that issue is to have free legal abortion in the first trimester. Because nobody thinks about it and goes, well, I think I want to have a baby. And then 35 weeks along goes, I changed my mind. No, if you have free legal access to abortion in the first trimester for everybody who wants one, you never have an issue of third trimester abortion. The only time it would ever come up is, like you said, Zach, with the health of the mother or a fetal deformity of some kind, something that's not compatible with life, then it would still come up, but you're never going to change that. So why even argue about it?
We need access to that because some of those, with some of these abnormalities, if they don't do a third trimester abortion, both mother and baby are dying. Like, there's no option. Like, there's one where all their joints solidify into one place. If they are born alive, it is a few hours of horrific pain. Well, everything grows in on them and then they die. But they don't have pain unless they get to full term. And so but if they do, if they try to birth that child, it will, like, cause you can't, their joints are in one spot. They can't be moved to squeeze a baby out. Right. And the cesarean is also super complicated by that. If you get to full term, you're very likely going to be killing the woman. So, if you get to full term, it's going to be just horrific pain for this baby now. No, there's no good option there. So, yeah, like third trimester abortion is strictly a medical necessity in that, you know, you're out of choices
and usually
compatible life, right? Like anything compatible with life.
In those cases, it's usually somebody who wanted to have that baby, like
almost exclusively.
Almost exclusively, it's somebody
like
who
very heartbreaking stories.
And then these people have to be told that they're baby killers, and they have to put up with that shit after they have gone through this heartbreak of wanting to have this baby and then having this tragedy happen.
They've usually picked out a name.
Yeah,
they've started buying things. Like they've
decorated
had baby
a room.
It's God, I know, I can't either. It's horrific.
And then on top of that, be called a murderer, like by people like Catholic dude.
Yeah, like you just wanted to slut around, and not have to deal with the consequences. When by that point, by a third trimester, they've already physically lived with the consequences. They've already like consented to this. Like by no matter what the situation is, by third trimester, they've consented to this situation. There's no, oh man, I couldn't imagine. I could not imagine being in that situation. It's horrifying. Yeah, no one's changing their mind. That's stupid.
It's the people who think that actually happens. I have to wonder how tethered to reality they are. Like,
right? Like, okay, you walk me through this.
Yeah.
Explain to me how you think this works, right?
Or who's the person you've ever met that did that? Because I've never heard of a person. I've never met a person. I've never met anyone, because they're so rare as it is. I've never met anyone who's had a third trimester abortion. I have known quite a few people who have had abortions, like, just your typical first trimester, whatever. I've known several people, and I probably know many more, but. Oh yeah, we all know a lot of them. It's just people are afraid to talk about it. And I was just actually with a local group the other night. There was probably 6 or 7 of us because we're in a rural area, and one of the friends of mine, she was like, we have to do something about all of this fucking abortion laws. I'm just so mad. We need to get together and figure out what to do. So we all met for dinner, and we kind of had some ideas about things we could do locally. And we started talking about the stigma around abortion and how there's so much guilt and people don't think they know someone. And she's like, you know what? I'm just going to come out and say it. I've had an abortion. She said, I've had 2. And I'm done being ashamed of it. I'm going to start talking about it. I'm going to start telling people about it. And she's like, I'm not, she's like, I'm tired of it being this secret. And like, we need more of that. We need more people to come out and say this is something, because right now people think they don't know anyone that it's happened to. And so they
really do, but it's so common.
That shame. And yeah, like if I had ever had one, I would be the first one to come out and say, here was my experience. Here's what happened. The only reason I haven't had to have one, frankly, is because I had a Planned Parenthood in my town when I was 16. If I had not had a Planned Parenthood in my town and was able to go get birth control at the age of 16, I would have been pregnant by 17, or I would have been having an abortion by 17. I mean, the only reason I've been able to have 2 children when I wanted them, when I was able to plan for them, when I was ready for them, is because Planned Parenthood gave me birth control.
Yeah,
that's it.
Planned Parenthood gave me when my high school sweetheart and I, when we decided to start having sex, we did purchase condoms, and we were very responsible and had it all planned. It was really an awesome experience. But his mom found out. I can't remember how. It doesn't matter. So she came home and handed them big old bag of condoms from Planned Parenthood. And I eventually did hormonal birth control, and I wasn't super fond of it. But when I turned 18, I was able to get other forms of birth control. I was working literally when I turned 18. The first job I had at 18, which wasn't my first job, but I was making $6.50 an hour plus tips.
Yep, sounds right.
Yeah. So I mean, Yeah. So, you know, I mean, it's just, I needed help, and I needed help paying for my medicine, and luckily they were there, and I eventually got good insurance and was able to get an IUD. And like, I honestly, having access to birth control has probably saved my life, because I was in an abusive marriage. What was I going to do if I got pregnant with his kid? It was going to be, it probably would have killed me. I probably would have killed myself, because I was getting close anyway.
My first boyfriend was abusive, and that's why I'm so glad I had that. You know, I keep thinking, God, what if, and I said this on the debate, but people may have thought I was being hypothetical, but truly, I had an abusive boyfriend. If I had gotten pregnant and been forced to carry that child, he would still be in my life today.
Exactly.
I would have spent years and years with him, even if we weren't together, with him being in my life, worrying about that child I had and how he was treating that child and being involved with his family. And I would have missed out on marrying the person I did and having the kids I did have, who are loved, fun, annoying sometimes children.
Yeah,
but
I don't think I would have survived. I don't think I would have.
I may have survived, but I would have been fucking miserable for my entire life. And I don't think that's okay. I don't think it's okay to say I should have had to do that. I should have.
Well, I got to the point. Another thing, stigma-wise, but like suicide, right, and suicidal ideation. I got to the point where I looked in our medicine cabinet to see what kind of pills I could overdose on. And I mean, I don't mean ibuprofen. I mean mixing Valium and leftover opioids from anything that we might have had. And I had a plan. Luckily, I said something, and he called the suicide hotline for me, but it was shortly thereafter where I left. So, but I mean, like, if I had to go through a pregnancy and then deal with him as a father, I don't think I would have survived. I really don't think I would have. I don't think I could have done it. I probably, no. It was already obviously so bad. It was already so bad that I was so close to not being here today. And I'm glad I am.
Yeah, we are too.
We're glad you are. So the question is, at the end of the debate, you mentioned like, hey, we'll do this again. And then after seeing some Facebook comments, would you, and do you feel like, it's almost like the whole platforming debate. It's like, if people are going to keep having the same arguments and you basically shoot them down, do you really need to keep doing it? Would you really want to do this again? Or do you feel like people just have to step forward and say, your points are terrible, and here's what humanity's like, and you live in this world, you should be able to accept it, but many don't.
Yeah, that was my fault, because right at the end of the debate, I'm like, I would love to come back and do this. And part of that was the polite me talking that, oh, thank you so much for having, we should do this again. And at the time I was thinking there's a lot of stuff we really didn't touch on. We didn't even talk about parenting and the gravity of parenting and the gravity of having to make the choice for adoption, which is a whole nother heartbreaking. There is stuff we didn't get into, but then, like Felicia said afterwards, we completely won that. Why would we go back to have the exact same debate again?
Why give them a chance to be prepared this time? Like,
well, and were they going to bring any different arguments? No, they were going to bring the same arguments.
I think they had a few preset points that maybe they didn't get to, because clearly that, like as you mentioned, like Dallas in his closing was like, wait a second, we didn't get to my amazing arguments about, I don't even remember what they were.
Change all your minds. Yeah.
That was amazing, because his closing argument was basically like, no, you argue the points I want you to argue. Don't talk about praxis, not praxis, theory.
My mom says I'm brilliant.
Yeah, I'm
Chris and Dallas both brought that up afterwards in the private message thing, like, why we should do this again, we should. And I'm like, nah, really, do we need to? And of course, Dallas kept coming back with well, if you don't want to debate, that means you don't have a strong argument. And people are only afraid to debate if they're not. And I'm like, no, it's not that. It's that, do I want to spend my valuable time fucking around talking to Dallas, trying to convince him that I'm right when it's never going to happen? And I've already done it once. Or do I want to like go weed my garden? Because I really like weeding my garden. I love pulling weeds out of the ground. It's wonderful. I just don't feel it. There's no need for it. There's no need. It's ridiculous.
We're not going to be, it's not going to be better propaganda for the pro-abortion side. If we do it again, we're not going to gain anything. We could potentially lose a debate, which I think this is a high stakes debate. We need to convince people that this is important and that it matters and that we need access to abortion. And I don't want to risk them getting, and it's true, I don't want to risk them watching a couple of YouTube videos and learning how to debate actually works. I used it for propaganda. I feel it was a success. I'm pretty sure that it's going to reach some people and open up some perspectives they didn't have before. I am not willing to risk them doing a good job. Just not. And it's not because I don't have points. That's not what wins debates. It's skill.
Well, and to me, this is not an issue of there's two sides, let's hear them out. To me, there very much is one correct side.
Right.
And you can not like abortion all you want. You can never get an abortion if you don't want to have one. You can do any of that, but there is only one correct argument, and that is that abortion needs to be legal. That's it. We need to have it. It's never going to go away. It's always going to be either legal or unsafe. Like, it's not going to be abortion or no abortion. It's always going to be legal or illegal. So the idea of debating it even it just irritates me, because this isn't our cats or dogs better. This isn't a matter of opinion. This is something that affects people in a big way, and there is one correct answer. And it's like people's argument with, should you even argue evolution versus creationism, because it really makes it seem like there's two sides when there aren't. There's one fucking side.
There's one side,
and then there's a group of people saying, no, listen to my alternate reality. And I don't know, I feel like debating it continually gives it that credibility.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, it would if we went back, it would almost look like, oh, we admit that there's more here that we need to do to justify our side, when we don't. And and the thing is, like, they didn't have any arguments, right? I re-listened to it, and at no point did they actually really get a full argument out there. They're going to be untruthful. They're going to be dishonest about their actual motivations. I didn't think that I was going to convince them. I knew it. I wasn't. I felt like what we had a chance to do was connect with people on the fence who might be listening, and why it's so important that they vote in a way that supports legal abortion.
Right.
So, no part two. Absolutely not giving them that credence, not going to give them legitimacy, and certainly not going to give them a chance for better propaganda, because that's what I wanted to do, was use them for propaganda.
Well, and Dallas very much kept trying to get me to have him on my show so he could debate feminism. Ooh. He's like, I'd love to debate feminism. And I'm like, again, there aren't two sides to feminism.
Oh, I can't wait.
You either believe people are equal or you don't.
Right.
And you can believe that you don't think feminists are doing the correct tactics, I guess, but that's neither here nor there.
That's still just like the framework of feminism still.
Yeah.
That's still a feminist framework.
Yeah.
That's it.
You agree women are equal or not? If you say yes, great. If you say no, why would I argue that with you? You're wrong. I mean, there certainly are issues that people can be wrong on. In my school district, we have an abstinence only curriculum, and we have a horrible head school nurse, and we have a curriculum director who believes that there are two sides to this argument, and he needs to tread right into the middle of it, because if he lets too much sex ed get in, then he's going to have all the conservatives in town yelling at him. But if it's, if there's not enough, then all the liberals in town will be yelling at him. And I've said to him before, there are not two equal sides to this. There is the scientific proven you know, comprehensive sex ed has been proven to work. It just is. And there's not two sides. Again, there's the right side, and then there's the alternate reality side. And I'm not interested in pretending like the alternate reality side, you know, gets to have a say in anything. Yeah. Maybe I'm a bad person because of that.
See, that again, because I think Dallas and Chris were a bit taken aback when they listened to Secular Soup, right? When I was on, because
they thought you guys were best friends, or like your names tattooed on each other's wrists. Wait, are they Old Testament?
Might as well.
If they're not Old Testament, maybe not, but they don't read that part.
No, it was so funny because they Chris was like, "Oh, this was so civil. This was the funnest conversation about abortion I've ever had."
They got heard, yeah.
Well, because we were polite
and you weren't. Yeah, you weren't.
We were nice. Meanwhile, I'm over here I would sit up like this, and I would hold myself in a way that sounded confident. And then when Chris was talking, I would just go. I'd mute and I'd be like, "Oh, fuck you! Oh, fuck you!" I did that sevel times. It was pretty fun. Actually.
So was there anything else you wanted to? Yeah, please.
I had to message Felicia at one point during the debate because Dallas, anyone who listened to it, Dallas kept fucking calling us girls.
Girls!
Yeah. And like anybody, all my friends who've listened to it before I've even said anything have been like, girls! Why does he keep saying girls? And so, yeah, I'm messaging Felicia while he's talking going, girls? Are you fucking, I'm going to scream. I'm going to start screaming right now. Yeah. But yeah, we were holding it together and just like, don't call us girls. We are women, but we're just, you know what? We're going to be polite. We're not going to say it. But then when we did say something about it afterwards, he got kind of pissed. But yeah.
Ooh, I mean, that fragility, though.
They thought,
by the time Dallas listened to my episode, we had been arguing for a week. And then he listened to it and he's like, oh, way to misrepresent everything I said. Sarcasm. And then I just left the group. I'm like, bye. And I guess we're done talking now.
Yeah, no. I think it's hilarious that they seem to insist that they have a right to us, platforming them to have their own voice, right? No, we don't. And because Dallas, he was like, "Oh, Felicia, I'd love to debate leftism with you." I'm like, no.
Leftism?
No.
Oh.
Yeah. He doesn't.
That sounds like a really good, that's something they actually study in college. Leftism.
He's going to sit there and tell me that socialism means that the state owns literally everything, and I'm going to have to make it into an education thing. But that's not what fucking socialism is. It's going to be a whole thing. I'm not. No, go do your homework. Go do some homework, and then maybe we can have a realistic discussion, but I doubt it because you don't do that.
I had to tell him, we don't, on my podcast, we don't debate. We just tell dick jokes and talk shit. Like that's our whole.
I would guess his word would be subpar.
Yeah, it just wouldn't. No, you don't get to come on my podcast. We only let men on that agree with us about everything. So
fuck yeah.
He's just not going to get in on it.
Yeah, we don't debate on Utah Outcasts either. The furthest what we've gone is when somebody comes on that may have a different perspective or disagreement with us. We've had a couple of people, theists on. We don't debate. Usually they're an ally in some other way, you know what I mean? Or an ally to communities that we're allied to. But we'll just ask questions, okay, where are you coming from? Why is this your belief? And honestly, when you approach it in a way that is accepting and kind like that, in that right situation where, we're already getting along, you get some pretty interesting answers that are not really as certain as people like to say they are. But that's okay. That's the closest we've ever gotten, is just trying to understand some other perspectives a little bit better. But we don't have somebody on who can be like,
well, and I think there's a difference between, I love having a conversation with someone in good faith, somebody who's actually trying to learn or wants to have a back and forth. Somebody who's debating you is not interested in changing their mind or learning from you, or it's pointless. Like Dallas and I are never going to sit down and have a conversation where he learns something or I learn something. That's not going to happen.
That's mind blown right there. That's
I love having contentious discussions with people if it's that we're both trying to kind of learn something and hash out our beliefs. And yeah, I mean, that's great, but that's not what this was.
But when I was preparing for the debate, my boyfriend, who is 100% on my in agreement with me on this, he actually did play devil's advocate for me, like that, and that was actually, it was really useful to have someone be a foil to me so I could get used to that kind of challenge. And then, like, the thing about devil's advocate is it can get kind of aggravating and frustrating. But when it's done right, it's really engaging and useful. I love having a conversation, especially one where people raise really good issues. It's worth considering certain points of view. Oftentimes, there isn't a point of view about abortion being illegal that I will ever entertain. Or honestly, being immoral. It's not. It's really easy. It's not immoral. Like, no harm, no foul, right?
Yep.
Pretty much. Now, my gosh, I was like, hey, 45 minutes, and you know what?
Oh, sorry.
You cannot contain the two of you into a 45-minute shaped hole.
You knew what you were getting into, Zach.
The only downside is this Catholic dude. Well, Deborah and Jeannie apparently in the chat room are ready to debate him, but he is not willing to prove that he's an actual human being. So I have a feeling that may not happen. And I have a feeling, I'm not even going to go there. So,
oh my God, there's so much chat here.
Where people
I can't see it.
Need to go is Secular Soup and Utah Outcasts. So please tell me where we can find these shows and, when they're happening, when you can get cool, like, soup bowls and stuff. And I'm out of beer, so that's when the show
made
ends.
that with my own hand. I did. So Secular Soup, we are wherever fine podcasts are sold. Basically, if you can find a podcast, we're probably on it. It's myself and the other Amy. I call her Other Amy, or misspelled Amy because her name is spelled wrong. But it's basically just the two of us, like I said, talking shit and sometimes having guests on. If they're men, we make sure to talk over them the whole time and call them names, because that's kind of our thing. We like to just call them names and make fun of them. But it's mainly if you like profanity, and you like ladies who just ramble and talk shit, we're the show for you. So,
I do. I do very much.
Soup, look for us wherever you find podcasts. We're on YouTube. We don't do visual recordings because we both have shitty internet and we just can't. It doesn't work good. But we do have a YouTube channel, and on our YouTube channel, you can find a 2-hour-long video of the two of us getting drunk, which is the highlight of our YouTube channel. So go look for that. We're going to do another one soon. But yeah, check us out. Oh, I should mention the tiara is on brand for me. I don't normally wear a tiara during the day on a Sunday afternoon, but it's kind of a thing Other Amy and I decided on. So if you ever see us at conferences, we'll have these on too, because it's our branding.
I love it. I love it.
Good branding.
Yep.
So Utah Outcasts, that's on YouTube, wherever pods are casted, and UtahOutcast.com. We have a Teespring store, Utah Outcasts gear, Utah Outcasts gear. It's got all sorts of fun things. Man, there's leggings, there's tank tops.
Man, leggings.
Yeah, leggings. It's a Utah Outcasts. We've got t-shirts and tank tops that say degenerate. We've got one that we put some Latin around a pentagram. Oh, and I forget the translation, but it's very bad.
Cool.
So yeah, go check that out. You can find me on Twitter at Felicia Entwistle, no E on the end. And you can find me on Facebook at Felicia Stormborn. Stand Daenerys till I die. And yes, that's where that's my pluggables.
I forgot to mention, and Other Amy would kill me, but our website is delightfulbitchcraft.com. And if you go to delightfulbitchcraft.com, we have an Etsy shop where we sell highly profane goods, like mugs with the word fuck somewhere on them. I don't know. We make stuff ourselves and sell it on delightfulbitchcraft.com. Have I mentioned it's delightfulbitchcraft.com?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
So-
check that out. That's the other thing that we do is sell profanity laced mugs, and really I do a lot of really nasty Bible quotes on wall hangings, stuff
I
like
love
that.
it.
You know, just any kind of stupid shit that you need in your life, we have.
Just
We
in
have
time
a
for Father's
mug.
Day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
We have a mug that says thought. Because I keep getting called a thought on our channel.
Oh, that kind of.
Yeah.
I'm old. That took me a
T-H-O-T.
minute. Yeah, I forgot that was
That
a thing.
hoe over there.
Wow.
I mean, I am. I can't be offended.
Oh.
Accept
Other
it and
Amy
live
does
by
all the hoeing on our channel, so
Well,
Amy
good
with
for
an I.
her.
Yeah, she's
Good
the
for
hoe on
her.
our channel.
They all need one. Wait, I'm the only one. Interesting. Anyway, well, thank you, ladies, Felicia and Amy, for being on the show, and
Yeah.
it's been lovely.
Thank you for putting up with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was too much fun.
Yes.
We're we're very different when we're not
Yes.
pretending.
We're evil bitches.
Evil, yes.
Now you know.
Mm-hmm.